we have not seen GDP per capita growth. Hence, this topic is even more important today. So, what we have seen, productivity, low productivity is the real culprit of this slowdown, including in Uganda, where we have seen a little bit stronger per capita growth than the average. And there are several reasons for them that have been quoted, such as the cost of credit, public sector efficiency, and others. What I really miss from this discussion, though, is seen. But the presentation starts off by talking about monetary and fiscal policy coordination, and it's a little bit monetary-centric, in as much as it says that there is coordination if the monetary policy is left to do whatever it's meant to do. But then as the presentation moves on, you really see that these interactions are very, very complex. So the presentation introduces a very interesting argument in favor of monetary financing of the deficit. When is it warranted? When is it, how? It doesn't really, the assumptions behind it is that the monetary financing of the deficit can contribute to growth, but only short term, not long term. Or at least the presentation does not discuss how can fiscal financing of the deficit contribute to long-term growth. What got me a little bit worried that it seems that the preconditions for using this tool in Uganda are already there. The fiscal position is perceived as sustainable. Therefore, there would be no perceived pressure from the fiscal authorities to finance the deficit. The central bank is credible. Inflation is declining. And the lending rates are high not because of fiscal dominance, but because of structural rigidity, as Dr. Musisi has told us. So there is allegedly space for this temporary and careful experiment, but really careful with it, I would say. And as you, Elizabeth, have said as well, central bank independence is a very fragile concept. It's impossible to measure. Even fiscal dominance is very difficult to measure. Fiscal sustainability we do measure, but it's subject to all the variables that you have no control of over a very long period. Communication, how to explain the public that the monetary financing is happening without pressure from the fiscal authorities, that's something I would not even know how to venture into. So just to look back into this discussion on productivity that is central to this forum. Low productivity is typically associated with high inflation. What we observe in Uganda is not high inflation, aside from some short periods of instability due to outside pressure, external shocks. So my question is, how is this possible? Does the monetary policy have to overcompensate for the low productivity in order to keep inflation in the target? And if yes, what does this do to fiscal sustainability and to future growth? In other way, what are the costs of low productivity? This is an open question. I hope we will be able to hear some answers to it, and if not, there will always be an 8th high-level growth forum to pick up from there. Thank you very much.
Maurice said we have very few minutes, so we shall be getting some questions from the audience, maybe only 4, and then we shall have to break for tea. And I will probably just pick one person from each end, and then that will be it. Yes, Honorable.
Okay. Thank you very much. My name is Victoria Sektoreko from Private Sector Foundation of Uganda. And I will go directly to the PSST, because he knows whenever I'm seated here, I listen intently. We really appreciate that you did not come up with new taxes, but really that's not our worry. Those are not the ones killing us. It is the present tax system which is killing us, specifically for agribusiness. How did you choose to come up with that 20% presumptive tax on all our businesses? And how did you select who to charge it on and who not to charge it on? Because it is selective and it is really punitive. Secondly, Mr. PSST, you said your job is to listen to the private sector and make sure that we can do our business. Could you please listen to us, as you have said, and then respond where it hurts most? For example, what do we want now? Please talk to URA and UNBS. Through the killing of the QMAC by UNBS, all the small manufacturers are now out of business. Can you please listen to us and do something about it before we bury them? Thirdly, I find it very interesting when we all sit here and pretend we don't see what is obvious everywhere. If you were to be asked, where are all the youths now? Most of them are in innovations and creative sector, but it is never mentioned. Is there any reason why nobody ever talks about the music in this country? If you are looking for taxes, it is musicians who can collect a lot of tax in just one day. But somehow when we come to these high-level meetings, we pretend they are not there, we don't mention them, we don't plan for them. For example, they have to beg to work. For those of you who may be like me who enjoy music, recently when there was this new singer, Eden Skin.
Hello, darling.
Hi, Granny.
What did you do this weekend?
Well, on Friday, I went on a science trip with my classmates to Windy to see the gorillas.
Then we watched the Cup final in London.
Oh.
On Saturday, my friends and I met up to hunt some dragons again. Also, I taught the vacuum cleaner and the TV this new dance everyone's doing. They're really getting into it. And on Sunday, I went to bed watching the world from space. And you? Yes, seriously, Granny.
With Airtel 5G's lightning-fast speeds and seamless connectivity, you won't believe what's next.
Airtel, a reason to imagine.
On Adapted Mind Reading, stories are designed to build vocabulary and comprehension. There are hundreds of stories to choose from, at all difficulties from K through 6. To show you how it works, let's say you choose Peter Pan. Click below.
Is easily susceptible to external shocks. We have seen that in the global financial crisis and COVID-19. And so therefore, if anything teaches us, is one thing is that we have to grow our economy based on manufacturing and exports of value addition products, not raw materials. I would want to direct these questions to our friends in the Ministry of Finance. I have been severally to the major industrial parks. What you see there is basically an extension of, how do I call it, assembling plants of Chinese products, again in the country. When are we going to use domestic materials, value addition based on our competitive advantage in Uganda here, so that we can export more products from Uganda, other than again bringing and assembling some of these materials from here? The second one is that the recent events shows that in the mid to long term, we must seriously reduce our reliance on external debt financing, because as we have already seen, it has got terrible impact on our fiscal space. In effect, we are debt trapped. What is it that we are going to do differently to look for alternative sources of financing, and most importantly, creating deficiencies in public administration, reducing size of our government, and also reprioritizing some of the projects in the country and being more frugal. Thank you very much. What is it that we are going to do, especially again from government side?
Honorable.
Thank you. I am Nakut Faith, the woman MP for Napak. The presentations we've had have highlighted two key options. One is to resort to monetary policy. The other is to resort to reducing government expenditure. I will speak on reducing government expenditure. That will be, if that option is taken, then the citizens will be very happy. Politically, it will be good for all of us who are in politics. However, given that government is actually one of the biggest consumers of goods and services in Uganda, will reducing government expenditure yield growth? Where will the alternative market be for the goods and services the Ugandans will be producing?
Go ahead.
Thank you. I'm called Walgawa William from the private sector, Chuma Technologies and Innovation Center. I want to thank the organizers of this workshop, Minister of Finance, but now run quickly to my two questions because we are running out of time. To Kaseke, I want to know which boards are we holding, because we are in this impossible trinity. Which boards is Uganda holding? Then two, I want to add my voice to the IMF discussant. I'm also puzzled and I'm disturbed by the low productivity in Uganda. We had an SDG festival, Sustainable Development Goals Festival, sponsored by the UN and other partners. Many Ugandans exhibited what they are doing. But we're also wondering, why do we still struggle with productivity? So, Ministry of Finance and, of course, Bank of Uganda to tell us what is the problem, where is the problem, why is Uganda still producing low? If we are producing, why are we not recognized? And this also, of course, adds a voice to what Sechtoriko said. Taxation, people are producing and we are not taxing. In one of the forums, I brought an example of taxis. There's a lot of money taxi people are collecting from us. I paid money to a taxi. How much is government taking from that? I would want to know. And if you are not taking it, then you are losing a lot of money because it ends up in just individuals and you are not tapping it. Of course, this at one forum of SDG conference which we had, a discussant proposed digitizing receipting. Is it digitized receipting? Are we taking it on as Uganda? Is it something we are focusing? So that maybe that way we'll be able to get every little tax so that we grow our tax base. I thank you.
Okay, the head of the private sector out there. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Dr. Msik. My name is Grace Nshamere. I'm from Private Sector Foundation, Uganda. I want to express a difference in opinion from Dr. Mutenyo regarding green financing. I think he said that it can wait. It shouldn't wait. Our neighbors, Kenya, Rwanda, are tapping into this financing, and we're behind the curve. We know that our neighbors are net importers of food. We know that 30% of our land is actually water. So the issues to do with climate change, weather-dependent agriculture, can easily be addressed by solar irrigation. The sun is really burning us. We're not converting it into energy that can power our farms. Can we consider solar irrigation at scale, leveraging Lake Victoria, the biggest lake in Africa, River Nile, Lake Chog? I can go on and on. We have a lot of water. We just need to stretch it to the rest of the country. Thank you.
Thank you. Nixon Kitimori. I was wondering, we've heard about fiscal consolidation measures and other austerity measures currently being taken or going to be taken by the government. And I was wondering whether debt restructuring has also been considered as an option, because historically, emerging economies and other developing economies have used debt restructuring to help alleviate their debt ratio concerns. Implementation using, of course, reduction in the face value of debt, which reduces the debt stock almost immediately, or through cash flow relief with no face value reduction, which reduces the present value of the debt through changes in the scheduled payments. Thank you.
Okay, unless maybe we take one person from there and then we stop. Julius.
Thank you so much. The presenters, thank you so much for your presentation. I want to talk to Dr. Mutenyo. You made actually very good prophecies on what General Museveni will do next. But I want you to change and instead of making them prophecies, make them probably technical recommendations, because these are the things that need to be done in order to improve. Then the other thing you talked about was about international trade, probably opening up markets, removing trade barriers. LDCs have actually signed quite a lot of agreements with WTO, and some of these agreements, I don't know whether we signed them without looking into the details of these agreements. For example, there are clauses in WTO agreements that that allows LDCs to probably export about 80% of manufactured goods and only 20% of raw materials, raw goods or non-manufactured goods. If you look at everything else but arms and other agreements that are signed by LDCs. So we really need to move forward and work on some of these technical barriers and non-tariff barriers for us to improve in our trade. Thank you so much.
Lastly, Julius.
Yes, quickly. I just want to take it from, I think, from the PSST. For the first time, he has not told us or lectured on what he's going to do, the things he has done, but I think he has really challenged us in terms of, how should we grow? Where should we put money to accelerate this growth? Which priorities should we set up? I think these are, serious questions that we need to answer. And I will attempt one, but also I will ask colleagues on the panel to answer them. My understanding right now is that our biggest challenge is not financing in this country. The biggest challenge is execution of utilization of the little resources that we have to be able to bring returns. And as such, probably a panel could dive into how should we execute or utilize the little resources. I think for me, Albert, is something that we need to look at. If we are going to put all the money in the infrastructure, which roads start first? Should we do all the roads at the same time? Which road should start first? Which transmission line should first start, and where should it go? Should we ensure that each and every village has a primary school, or that each and every household has, power connected to it, even those that are grass thatched? I think it is important that probably the panel could look into that and give some advice. I will be very grateful. I thank you.
Number of questions for the PSST, and representing him is the Director Economic Affairs. I think he will answer some of the issues. I want to start with him. from Honorable Secretary Leko on taxes. Why are you imposing such high presumptive taxes? And a number of others, which I think you took note of. Please.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Good afternoon to you all. Is it afternoon? Okay. Yeah, a number of very important and provoking questions have been raised by Honorable Secretary Leko. And yes, we do have presumptive taxes, and these are meant for people who may not be able to keep a proper books of accounts, but they're in business. So there is a presumptive tax that they pay. And we've been trying to reform this tax over a number of years. And what we have now is a 4-band structure. It's not a 20%. It's a 4-band structure where there is 1% tax on a gross turnover, business with a gross turnover of between 10 and 30 million. When you have a business of less than 10 million, you don't pay anything. Then there is, so there are 4 bands for all the people who have small businesses. But we are open for further discussions on this matter. If this is stifling and crippling some businesses, we are open to reform, because that's why we are there. We listen to you. On the youth, especially the ones in the creative industry, you are right. And it is one of the areas we are actually trying to grapple with and try to see how we can assist. One, these youth have financing under the EMIOGA. It's one of the EMOGAs there. They have been getting financing, and they have claimed that this financing is not enough. So in our discussions with in the EMIOGA, we are trying to see how we can provide more funding for these creative artists to be able to further their professions. So it's really something that we are discussing and trying to take care of. On industrial parks by Honorable Omara, that there's only assembly in the industrial parks. Yes, there's a lot of assembly, but there's also a lot of manufacturing that is beyond assembly. Some of them are using intermediate products, others are using raw materials. And we are seeing, for example, people who are making tiles. That is not assembling. They're actually making from that, and they're making other ceramic materials from that. So we are seeing that. But also, assembling is a very good way of starting manufacturing, because a lot of people are not manufacturing. And we are putting in place measures really that are driving towards enhanced manufacturing. You may have heard some people in the steel sector crying foul that we have increased taxes on wire rods which are making nails and other steel products. But because we are seeing capacity developing here, then we impose taxes on those things to discourage that. I think the rest of the questions will be answered by the presenters. Thank you so much for listening to me.
So we are going to give 1 minute to each of the presenters, because most of the issues actually we are going to go into in depth in the next sessions. So 1 minute for Dr. Chris Adam. From there.